Most disturbing true trucker horror stories. Story 1. The Mile That Never Ended. My name is David Garrett, and I've been driving long haul for 22 years. I'm 47 years old, married with 3 kids back in Tulsa, Oklahoma. What happened to me on Interstate 40 last November didn't just cost me my CDL. It cost me the ability to trust my own mind. I was hauling 43,000 pounds of frozen chicken from Amarillo to Little Rock in my 2019 Freightliner Cascadia. The run was routine, something I'd done maybe 50 times before. I'd cleared the way station at mile marker 47 around 1 in the morning. My logbook showed I had 4 hours left on my 11-hour drive clock. The cab was warm, my coffee was hot, and I was listening to a podcast about unsolved mysteries. Everything was completely normal. Then I passed mile marker 89. Nothing seemed wrong at first. The road stretched ahead empty under the sodium lights. But when I checked my odometer 5 minutes later, I'd only traveled 0.3 miles. I figured the odometer was glitching. These newer trucks have so much computer equipment, something's always acting up. 10 minutes later, I passed mile marker 89 again. I knew that wasn't right. I looked at my speedometer, steady 68 miles per hour. I looked at the road signs, Interstate 40 East, same as before. I grabbed my phone to check the GPS. It showed me moving forward normally, a little blue dot crawling along the highway. But I kept passing mile marker 89. You know that feeling when something is wrong but your brain keeps trying to rationalize it? That's where I was. Maybe the state had duplicate markers. Maybe I was more tired than I thought. I turned off the podcast, rolled down the window. The cold November air hit my face, sharp and real. Temperature gauge on my dash read 31 degrees. I passed mile marker 89 for the 4th time. My CB radio crackled. Channel 19 had been quiet all night, but now I heard static, then a voice. You see it too? A man's voice, rough with age and fear. You stuck in the loop? I grabbed the handset. Who is this? What loop? Mile 89. You keep passing it. Don't stop. Whatever you do, don't stop the truck. My heart started hammering against my ribs. How do you know where I am? Because I've been here for 3 hours. I stopped to check my tires. That was a mistake. I looked in my mirrors. Empty road behind me. Empty road ahead. Where are you? Pull over and you'll find out. That's what it wants. The radio went dead. Just static. I tried every channel. Nothing. I passed mile marker 89 again. Then again. My fuel gauge hadn't moved. I'd been driving for what felt like 30 minutes, but my dash clock still showed 1:47 a.m. The same time it had been when I first noticed something was wrong. That's when I saw the truck stop. A pilot station, lights blazing right off exit 89. I'd driven past it a dozen times before on previous runs. It looked perfect, normal, safe. My hands were shaking on the wheel. I needed to stop, needed to talk to another human being face to face, needed to prove I wasn't losing my mind. I took the exit. The moment my wheels left the interstate, everything changed. The pilot station was there, all right, but every pump was dark, every window was black. And in the parking lot sat maybe 30 trucks, all perfectly still, all dark, arranged in neat rows like tombstones. I hit the brakes. My truck shuddered to a stop. That's when I saw the drivers. They were standing between the trucks, just standing there in the darkness, all facing my direction. I couldn't see their faces, just their silhouettes. None of them moved. They just stood there, watching. One of them raised an arm and pointed at me. Every hair on my body stood up. I threw the truck into reverse, but the engine died. I turned the key. Nothing. The electrical system was completely dead. No lights, no dash, nothing. Then I heard the CB. Somehow, impossibly, it crackled to life even though my truck had no power. That same voice. I told you not to stop. In my mirror, I saw them walking toward my truck. Slow, deliberate. There were dozens of them. I could hear their footsteps crunching on gravel. I did the only thing I could think of. I opened the door, jumped down, and ran. Ran toward the interstate, toward the lights, toward anything that felt real. Behind me, I heard them following, not running, just walking, but somehow keeping pace. I hit the interstate and kept running down the shoulder. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, and then suddenly I heard a horn. A truck blasted past me, horn blaring, lights blazing, real, moving. I waved my arms and screamed. The driver must have thought I was insane, but he stopped. An older guy, maybe 60, driving for Swift. "You okay, buddy? Where's your rig?" I couldn't speak. I just pointed back at the exit. He looked, and his face went pale. There was nothing there. No pilot station, no trucks. Just an empty exit ramp leading to a closed rest area. Chain across the entrance. Closed for renovation sign. He drove me to the next truck stop, called the Highway Patrol. They found my Freightliner 4 miles down Interstate 40, parked on the shoulder near mile marker 93. Engine running, lights on, logbook open on the passenger seat. I'd written the same line over and over. Mile 89, can't get past mile 89, 47 times. The doctor said it was a micro-sleep event, hallucination from exhaustion. But my logbook shows I'd only been driving 6 hours. And they can't explain why my odometer had logged an extra 214 miles. The distance from Amarillo to Little Rock is 374 miles. My odometer showed 588. I lost my license for medical reasons. Failed the psych evaluation. But here's what I know. I filed a Freedom of Information request with the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. Over the past 15 years, 12 truckers have reported similar experiences on that stretch of Interstate 40. All between mile markers 87 and 91. All between midnight and 3 a.m. 3 of those drivers are missing. Their trucks were found abandoned, engines running, logbooks filled with the same repeated phrases. And 6 months ago, OCDOT permanently closed the rest area at exit 89. They won't say why, but if you search for satellite images of that location, you'll find something interesting. The parking lot shows trucks, dozens of them, parked in perfect rows, but when you zoom in, there are no tire tracks leading to them. They're just there, like they've always been there, like they're waiting. Story 2, The Phantom Dispatch. My name is Sarah Chen, and up until 8 months ago, I was one of the best regional drivers at Schneider National. I'm 34 years old, been driving for 9 years, and I'd logged over 1 million miles without a single accident. Everyone called me by my CB handle, Night Owl, because I preferred the graveyard shifts. Less traffic, better time, and honestly, I liked the solitude. That all ended on a Wednesday night in March when I accepted a dispatch that didn't exist. I was at a TA truck stop outside Memphis, Tennessee, finishing up a 20-minute break. My Qualcomm unit beeped with a new message. Load assignment, priority delivery. I just delivered automotive parts and was waiting for my next run, so I opened it immediately. Pickup at a warehouse on Industrial Boulevard in West Memphis, Arkansas. Delivery to a distribution center in Jonesboro, about 80 miles north. Load, medical supplies, pay, $3,000, $3,000 for 80 miles. That made my stomach turn. In trucking, when something pays too well, it's usually because nobody else will take it. But the message came through official channels. My fleet manager's code. Everything looked legitimate. I called dispatch to confirm. The night dispatcher, a guy named Marcus I'd worked with for years, answered on the second ring. "Yes, Sarah, I sent that. Customer's desperate. Original driver had a breakdown. They need it by 6 a.m. You interested?" $3,000, Marcus. Emergency rate. Medical supplies for a hospital. They're critical. I should have asked more questions, but $3,000 is $3,000 and I had rent due. Send me the address. The warehouse was exactly where the message said it would be. A sprawling metal building in an industrial area near the river. 2 a.m., and the place was lit up like Christmas. A loading dock door was open and I could see 2 workers in scrubs moving boxes on a forklift. I backed up to the dock. A guy in his 50s, thin, wearing blue scrubs and latex gloves, came out to meet me. "You the Schneider driver?" "That's me, Sarah Chen." He didn't smile. "We need to load you fast. These supplies are temperature sensitive." They loaded 28 pallets of white boxes, shrink-wrapped, labeled with biohazard symbols and a company name I didn't recognize. MedTech Solutions. The whole thing took 12 minutes. The guy handed me a bill of lading, but when I tried to read it, he said, "You can review it on the road. We're behind schedule." That should have been my second warning. But I was thinking about $3,000. I signed, he gave me a copy, and I was rolling by 2:23 a.m. The route was simple. Take Interstate 55 north, then U.S. 63 to Jonesboro. 90 minutes tops. I'd done similar runs 100 times. Except when I got on Interstate 55, my GPS went haywire. The screen showed me driving, but the map was wrong. Roads in places where there weren't roads. Towns with names I'd never heard of. I switched to my phone's GPS. Same problem. The maps didn't match reality. I figured it was a satellite issue. I knew the route anyway. Stay on 55, watch for the 63 junction, simple. But 30 minutes in, I hadn't seen a single other vehicle. Not one car, not one truck, nothing. The highway was completely empty, and the exits I was passing didn't match my memory. Exit numbers were wrong. Town names I didn't recognize. Crawfordsville, Jeanette, Harrisburg. But the signs looked old, faded, like they'd been there for decades. My CB was dead silent. No chatter at all. I tried calling out on channel 19. "This is Night Owl. Anybody out there?" Nothing, just static. Then my Qualcomm beeped. New message from dispatch. I glanced at the screen. "Turn around. Do not deliver the load. Return to Memphis immediately." My blood went cold. I grabbed my phone and called Marcus. It rang 6 times, then went to voicemail. I tried the main dispatch line. No answer. I tried my fleet manager, straight to voicemail. Another message appeared on the Qualcomm. "Sarah, this is Marcus. We didn't send you that load. Someone hacked our system. The warehouse address doesn't exist. Turn around now." My hands started shaking. I looked at the bill of lading on my passenger seat. In the darkness of the cab, I could barely read it. I turned on my dome light and picked it up. The paper was old. Not just old, but ancient. Yellowed. Brittle. The ink was faded like something from the 1970s, and the signature I'd scrawled at the bottom looked strange. The handwriting wasn't quite mine. I slammed on the brakes. The trailer made a sound I'd never heard before. Not the normal hiss and squeal of air brakes. Something else. Something organic, like breathing. I sat there on the shoulder, engine idling, heart slamming in my chest. You know that moment when your brain finally stops trying to rationalize and just screams at you to run. That's where I was. I grabbed my flashlight and got out of the cab. I had to see what I was hauling. The trailer doors were sealed with a lock I didn't remember putting there. An old padlock, rusted, covered in something that looked like dried blood. I grabbed my bolt cutters from the toolbox and cut it off. The smell hit me first. Rot, decay, chemicals. Something sweet and wrong that made my eyes water. I pulled open the door and shined my flashlight inside. The pallets were still there, but the boxes were different. They weren't white anymore. They were gray, water-stained, covered in mold. And they were leaking something dark that pooled on the trailer floor. I stumbled backward and threw up in the grass. Then I heard the sirens. State police. 3 cars, lights blazing, coming up fast behind me. They boxed me in and 6 officers got out, hands on their weapons. "Step away from the vehicle, hands where we can see them." I did everything they said. They searched me, searched the cab, then approached the trailer. The lead officer, a woman in her 40s with sergeant stripes, looked inside and immediately called for backup. They wouldn't let me near the truck after that. They made me sit in the back of a patrol car for 3 hours while more police arrived. Then people in hazmat suits, then federal agents. Finally, the sergeant came to talk to me. "Miss Chen, I need you to tell me exactly who hired you for this run." I explained everything. The dispatch message, the warehouse, the loading, all of it. She wrote it all down, her face grim. "Miss Chen, the address you gave us for that warehouse? That building burned down in 1987. It's been an empty lot for 38 years. That's impossible. I was just there. There were workers. They loaded my trailer." She shook her head. "And the cargo you're hauling? Those aren't medical supplies. That's medical waste, hazardous material. Some of it is from hospitals that closed decades ago. We're still trying to figure out where it actually came from." They impounded my truck. I was questioned by the FBI for 2 days. They confirmed that someone had hacked Schneider's dispatch system, but they couldn't trace it. The bill of lading I signed was dated March 14, 1979. The signature wasn't mine. It belonged to a driver named Sarah Brennan who died in a truck accident in 1981. Schneider let me go. Liability issues. I lost my CDL for hauling hazmat without proper endorsements, even though I had no idea what I was carrying. But here's what nobody can explain. The GPS data from my truck showed I drove 147 miles that night. The distance from Memphis to where the state police found me, 22 miles. I was found on Highway 64 heading west, away from Jonesboro, toward the Arkansas-Missouri border, toward a town called Gatewood. I researched it later. Gatewood was abandoned in 1983 after a medical waste scandal. A company called MedTech Solutions was illegally dumping hospital waste in the groundwater. 37 people died. The company owners disappeared before they could be prosecuted. And here's the thing that keeps me awake. After the FBI released my truck, I found something in the cab. Tucked under my seat, a photograph, black and white, faded from the 1970s. It showed a woman standing next to a Peterbilt, smiling at the camera. She looked exactly like me. Same face, same hair, same eyes. On the back, written in pencil, Sarah B., last run, March 1979. I don't drive anymore. I work dispatch now, day shift only, at a small local company. But sometimes, late at night, I get calls from drivers on Highway 64. They tell me their GPS is acting strange. They tell me they're passing towns that don't exist. And when I check their location, they're always near Gatewood. I tell them to turn around. I tell them not to stop. And I pray they listen, because I know what's waiting there. Something that needs drivers. Something that's been waiting since 1979, and it knows my name. Story 3. The truck stop that wasn't there yesterday. My name is Michael Torres, but everybody calls me Big Mike. I'm 52 years old, been driving for J.B. Hunt for 27 years, and I've seen just about everything on American highways. Or at least I thought I had until last July when I stopped at a truck stop in Nevada that couldn't possibly exist. I was hauling electronics from Los Angeles to Denver, running Interstate 15 through the desert. It was July 15th. Temperature outside was 109 degrees and my air conditioning was struggling. I'd been driving for 7 hours and my logbook said I had 40 minutes before my mandatory break. The plan was to push through to the Flying J in Mesquite, another 38 miles ahead, but then I saw the sign. Last chance truck stop, exit 112, food, fuel, showers. I'd driven Interstate 15 through Nevada probably 300 times. I knew every exit, every mile marker, every truck stop between LA and Vegas. There was no last chance truck stop. There was no exit 112. The exits in that stretch went from 100 to 120 with nothing in between. But there it was, a big blue sign professionally made, reflective letters catching my headlights. And I was tired. My mouth was dry. The AC was barely keeping up. I figured maybe they'd built something new. Development happens fast in Nevada sometimes. I took the exit. The off-ramp curved away from the interstate, longer than normal, winding through desert scrub and rock formations. The road was smooth, freshly paved, with new paint on the lines. After maybe 2 miles, I saw lights ahead. The truck stop. It was massive, bigger than most I'd seen. 2-story building with a restaurant, store, and what looked like a motel attached. 30 fuel pumps under a huge canopy, and the parking lot was full. I counted at least 40 trucks, all different companies. Swift, Werner, Covenant, Prime, Independents with custom paint jobs. All parked in neat rows, lights off, like everyone was inside sleeping or eating. I pulled up to a pump, shut down my engine, and climbed out. The heat hit me like a physical force, even though the sun had set an hour ago. The temperature sign on the building said 113 degrees. Strange. It should have been cooling off by now. The fuel pump looked normal, clean. Digital display glowing bright. I swiped my company card, approved, started pumping. That's when I noticed how quiet it was. 40 trucks in the parking lot, but no sounds, no generators running, no APU units humming, no drivers walking around. The restaurant had lights on, but through the windows I couldn't see anyone inside. The pump clicked off, 53 gallons. I replaced the nozzle and headed toward the building to grab some food and use the restroom. The automatic doors slid open with a soft whoosh. Cold air hit me, too cold, like stepping into a freezer. The temperature drop was so severe I could see my breath. "Hello?" I called out. The truck stop was fully stocked. Aisles of snacks, drinks, trucker supplies, coffee pots full and steaming, hot food under heat lamps. Everything looked fresh and ready, but there wasn't a single person anywhere. No cashier, no customers. Nobody. I walked through the aisles, my boots echoing on the tile floor. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The refrigerators buzzed, but there was something wrong with the products. The brands weren't right. I picked up a bag of chips. Lay's Classic, the bag said, but the logo was wrong. Old, like something from the 1990s. The expiration date said July 1997. I put it back and grabbed a soda. Same thing. Coca-Cola Classic, but the can design was vintage. Expiration date, August 1989. Every product in that store was decades out of date, but they all looked new. Fresh, like they'd been stocked yesterday. My hands started shaking. I backed toward the door, but then I heard something. Music. Faint, coming from deeper in the building. An old song I recognized. Smoky Mountain Rain by Ronnie Millsap. A country song from the early 80s. I followed the sound to the restaurant area. It was a classic truck stop diner. Booths with red vinyl seats. Counter with chrome stools. Jukebox in the corner glowing with colored lights. The music was coming from there. And that's when I saw them. The drivers. They were sitting in the booths, maybe 20 of them. All men, various ages, wearing clothes that looked out of date, flannel shirts. Trucker caps with old company logos, jeans with bell bottoms. They sat perfectly still, staring at their coffee cups, at their plates of food. Not eating, not drinking, just sitting. "Excuse me," I said, my voice cracking. "Is everything okay?" None of them moved. None of them looked up. I walked closer to the nearest booth. The driver was maybe 60, gray beard, wearing a faded western shirt. His eyes were open, staring at a plate of eggs and bacon. The food looked fresh. Steam was still rising from the eggs. I reached out and touched his shoulder. He was cold, not just cold, frozen solid like a statue made of ice. I jerked my hand back and stumbled into a table. That's when I saw the calendar on the wall behind the cash register. One of those old-fashioned daily calendars. The date showing was July 17th, 1984. I ran, straight for the door, hit the exit at full speed. The automatic doors opened, and I burst out into the parking lot. All 40 trucks were still there, but now I could see them properly in the lights from the building. They were old models, Freightliners from the 80s, Peterbilts from the 90s, Kenworths with designs I hadn't seen in decades, and they were all faded, dusty. Some had flat tires, some had rust. These trucks hadn't been driven in years. I ran to my Freightliner, climbed in, hit the ignition. The engine turned over immediately. I threw it in gear and started rolling, not even caring about unhooking from the fuel pump. Except I was already unhooked. The hose was neatly replaced on the pump, even though I'd left it hanging. I floored it. My truck roared across the parking lot toward the exit road. In my mirrors, I could see the truck stop. All the lights were still on. The building looked perfect, normal. And standing in the doorway, watching me leave, were all 20 drivers. Just standing there in a line, not moving, not following, just watching. I hit the access road doing 45, which is insane for a loaded truck, but I didn't care. The road curved through the darkness, winding back toward the interstate. But it seemed longer than before, much longer. I drove for what felt like 10 minutes, watching my odometer tick up miles, but I couldn't see the interstate lights. And then, suddenly I was on the highway. No transition, no on-ramp. I was just there, rolling along Interstate 15 like I'd never left. I checked my dash clock. It showed the same time as when I'd taken the exit. No time had passed. I looked at my fuel gauge, still full. I looked at my trip odometer. I'd traveled 0 miles, but I could smell diesel fuel on my hands from handling the pump. I drove straight to the Flying J in Mesquite, pulled in, parked, and sat in my cab for an hour, shaking, trying to process what had happened. Finally, I went inside and talked to the cashier, an older woman named Dorothy who'd been working there for 15 years. "Dorothy, is there a truck stop called Last Chance on Interstate 15? Exit 112. She looked at me strange. "Honey, there's no exit 112 between Vegas and the state line." "Why?" I told her everything. She listened, her face growing more serious. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached under the counter and pulled out a folder, an old folder stuffed with papers. "You're not the first driver to ask me about that place," she said. "Over the years, maybe a dozen drivers have come in here with the same story. Last Chance truck stop, exit 112, drivers from the past, cold building, everything out of date." She opened the folder and showed me newspaper clippings from 1984. In July of that year, a flash flood hit this area. There was a truck stop called Desert Oasis, about 15 miles from here. During the flood, the parking lot collapsed into an underground cavern. 23 trucks and 18 drivers were lost. They never recovered all the bodies. The whole area was too unstable. They just sealed it off and built the new highway section around it. I stared at the clippings. There was a photo of the truck stop before it collapsed. It looked exactly like the place I'd just visited. Same layout, same building design. "But here's the thing," Dorothy continued. "That truck stop was never on Interstate 15. It was on the old highway, the route they used before they built the interstate. That road doesn't exist anymore. They demolished it in 1985. "How is this possible?" I asked. She shook her head. "I don't know. But every driver who's reported seeing it says the same thing. They were tired, running on empty, desperate for a stop, and the Last Chance appeared." I checked my receipts. I should have had a fuel receipt from the last chance. Nothing. No record of the transaction, no charge to my company card. My tank was exactly as full as it had been before I took the exit. But on my shirt I found something. A business card, old yellowed with outdated graphics. Last chance truck stop, exit 1 and 12, good food, cold drinks, rest for weary travelers. And on the back, handwritten in pencil, we're always here when you need us. I keep that card in my wallet. I've shown it to other drivers. Some laugh, some go quiet. A few have told me they've seen it too. They've taken that exit. They've stopped at that impossible truck stop. And they've all said the same thing. The drivers inside are waiting. Waiting for what? Nobody knows. But they're still there. Still sitting at their tables. Still staring at their cold coffee. Still waiting for someone to tell them the road is open again. I still drive Interstate 15. I have to. It's my regular route, but now I plan my stops carefully. I never let my fuel get below half a tank. I never drive tired. Because I know if I get desperate enough, if I need that stop badly enough, I'll see the sign again. Exit 112, last chance truck stop, and next time I might not be able to resist pulling in. Because that's what it does. It appears when you're vulnerable, when you're exhausted, when you need it most. And if you stay too long, if you sit down at one of those booths and close your eyes for just a moment, you might never leave. You might become one of them. One of the drivers who's been waiting since 1984 for a road that no longer exists. For a highway that was buried under concrete and time. Forever waiting for the next run that will never come. Story 4. The passenger I never picked up. My name is James Wilson. Everyone calls me Jimmy, and I'm 41 years old. I've been driving solo for 15 years, running refrigerated freight for a company called Transcold. I've always driven alone, never picked up hitchhikers, never had a partner. That's why what happened last December on Highway 287 in Montana has left me questioning everything I thought I knew about being alone in my truck. It was December 9th, just after midnight. Temperature was 8 degrees outside, wind chill making it feel like -10. I was hauling frozen vegetables from Billings to Great Falls, a route I'd run maybe 100 times. The highway was empty, snow falling steady. Not quite a blizzard, but enough to make driving slow and careful. I was about 90 miles into the run, passing through absolutely nowhere when I felt someone tap my shoulder. You need to understand something. When you're the only person in a vehicle and you feel someone touch you, your entire reality shatters in that instant. It's not fear. It's something beyond fear. It's the fundamental understanding that something impossible has just happened. I jerked the wheel so hard I almost put the truck in the ditch. My heart exploded in my chest. I looked in the passenger seat. A man was sitting there. He was maybe 60 years old, wearing a heavy winter coat, wool hat, and gloves. His face was weathered, lined with age. He looked completely real, completely solid. And he was staring straight ahead at the road, not at me. "Jesus Christ!" I screamed. "How did you get in here?" He didn't respond, didn't move, just kept staring forward. I hit the brakes. The truck slowed, tires crunching on snow. I pulled onto the shoulder, threw it in park, and grabbed my flashlight from the door pocket. "Who the hell are you? How did you get in my truck?" He turned to look at me then. His eyes were pale blue, almost colorless, and when he spoke, his voice was quiet, almost gentle. "Keep driving, Jimmy, we don't have much time." "How do you know my name?" "We need to reach mile marker 147 before 1:30 a.m. That's where she is." "Where who is? What are you talking about?" He pointed ahead through the windshield. "Drive. I'll explain on the way, but we're running out of time." Every instinct I had was screaming at me to get out of the truck, to run, to call the police. But there was something about his voice, something urgent and real. And somehow, impossibly, I believed him. I put the truck in gear and started driving. "My name was Thomas Garrett," he said. "I died on this highway in 1987, single vehicle accident, ice on the road. I was driving too fast, trying to make a delivery deadline." "You're dead?" "That's not the important part. What's important is the girl. She's broken down at mile marker 147. Blue Ford Taurus, older model. She's been there for 45 minutes. She tried to call for help, but her phone died. She's running the engine for heat, but she's almost out of gas." I looked at him. He looked completely real. I could see the texture of his coat, the frost on his mustache, the way his breath fogged in the cold air of the cab. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because if you don't reach her in the next 28 minutes, she'll turn off the engine to save gas. And in this cold, in this wind, she'll have about 40 minutes before hypothermia sets in, maybe less. She's wearing a light jacket. She wasn't prepared for the temperature to drop this much." "Why me?" "Because you're here. Because you can help her. Because I couldn't help anyone when I died, but I can help her now. Through you." I looked at my odometer. We were at mile marker 134, 13 miles to go. At my current speed, fighting the snow, it would take maybe 20 minutes. "What happens if I don't do this?" I asked. He looked at me with those pale eyes. "She dies." A college student named Emily Bradshaw, 22 years old, junior at University of Montana, driving home for Christmas break. She dies alone on the side of the road, and her parents spend the rest of their lives wondering why nobody stopped to help. I pressed down on the accelerator. The truck picked up speed, 45, 50. Faster than I should have been going in these conditions, but I kept pushing. "How do you know all this?" I asked. "I'm not the only one here, Jimmy. There are others like me, drivers who died on this highway. We watch the road. We see the accidents before they happen, the breakdowns, the mistakes. And sometimes when someone is in position to help, we can reach them, we can make them aware." Mile marker 138, 9 miles to go. "Why now? Why this girl?" "Because she matters. Because every life matters. Because I let people down when I was alive. I drove too fast, took too many risks, cared more about my schedule than the people on the road with me. This is my chance to balance that." Mile marker 142. 5 miles, the snow was getting heavier. My wipers could barely keep up. I should have slowed down, should have been more careful, but all I could think about was this girl alone in the cold. Mile marker 145. "There," Thomas said, pointing ahead. I saw the car. A blue Ford Taurus pulled onto the narrow shoulder, hazard lights blinking weakly through the snow. I hit my flashers and pulled over behind it, careful to give it plenty of room. "Go quickly," Thomas said. "She's scared. Be gentle." I looked over at him. He smiled, a sad, tired smile. "Thank you, Jimmy." And then he was gone. Just gone. The passenger seat was empty. I grabbed my heavy coat from the sleeper berth and climbed out into the wind. The cold hit me like a hammer. I ran to the Taurus and knocked on the window. A young woman inside jumped, terrified, then saw my trans-cold uniform and my truck behind her. She rolled down the window an inch. "Are you okay?" I shouted over the wind. "I'm out of gas," she said. She was shivering violently. "My phone died. I've been here for almost an hour. Come on, get in my truck. It's warm. We'll call for help." She hesitated for maybe 2 seconds, then made the decision. She grabbed her backpack and climbed out. We ran to my truck together. I helped her up into the cab, turned the heat up to maximum, and handed her a blanket from my sleeper. "Oh my God," she said, her teeth chattering. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I thought nobody was going to stop." I grabbed my phone and called 911, explained the situation. They said Highway Patrol would be there in 20 minutes with fuel and would follow her to the next town to make sure she got there safely. While we waited, she warmed up, drank hot coffee from my thermos, and told me her name. Emily Bradshaw, junior at University of Montana, studying biology, driving home to Miles City for Christmas. Her fuel gauge had been acting up and she'd thought she had more gas than she did. "I can't believe you stopped," she said. I was so scared, I kept thinking about all the news stories about people dying in the cold. I didn't know what to do. "You did the right thing. Stayed with your car. Kept your hazards on." "What made you stop? Do you always pick up stranded drivers?" I looked at the empty passenger seat. "Someone told me you needed help." The highway patrol arrived exactly when they said they would. The officer, a woman named Patterson, gave Emily 5 gallons of fuel and escorted her to the next town. I followed behind them for a while to make sure they were okay, then continued my run to Great Falls. I delivered the load on time, filled out my logbook. Everything normal. But I couldn't stop thinking about Thomas Garrett, the man who'd appeared in my truck, who'd known Emily's name, who disappeared the moment I stopped to help her. When I got back to Billings, I did some research. I called the Montana Highway Patrol and asked about traffic fatalities on Highway 287 in 1987. They sent me a list. On December 10, 1987, a driver named Thomas Garrett, age 56, died in a single vehicle accident at mile marker 151. He was driving for a company that no longer exists. He left behind a wife and 2 daughters. He'd been speeding in icy conditions trying to make a delivery deadline. The accident was at mile marker 151, 4 miles past where I found Emily. I tracked down Thomas's family. His wife had passed away, but I found one of his daughters. Her name is Rebecca, and she's 63 now, living in Butte. I called her and explained what happened. She was quiet for a long time. "My father was a good man," she finally said, "but he had demons. He felt like he never did enough, never helped enough people. He worked himself to death trying to be better. Maybe he finally got his chance." I've thought about this every day since. I've driven Highway 287 dozens of times. I've never seen Thomas again. But sometimes, late at night, I feel like I'm not alone in the cab, like someone's riding with me, watching the road, looking for people who need help. Last week, I stopped to help a family with a flat tire. The week before, I called 911 for an accident I saw ahead. I've started carrying extra blankets, emergency supplies, food. I've started paying more attention to the other drivers on the road, to the cars that look like they're struggling. Because I know now that we're not alone out here, that the drivers who came before us, the ones who died on these roads, they're still watching, still trying to help, still trying to balance the scales, and maybe that's what driving really is, not just moving cargo from point A to point B, but being aware, being present, being ready to help when someone needs it. I don't know if I'll ever see Thomas again. But if I do, I hope I can tell him that I understand now, that I get it, that I'm paying attention, that I'm watching the road, and that I'll stop next time too, every single time. Story 5, the convoy that followed me for 200 miles. My name is Robert Kane. I'm 55 years old, been driving for 31 years, and I thought I'd seen every kind of road situation imaginable. I've driven through blizzards, floods, and wildfires. I've delivered to every state in the lower 48. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what happened on Interstate 80 across Nebraska last September when I became part of a convoy I never agreed to join. I was running a load of furniture from Sacramento to Chicago in my 2020 Kenworth W900. The run through Nevada and Utah had been smooth, but by the time I crossed into Nebraska, I was tired. It was 3 in the morning on September 22nd, and I'd been driving for 9 hours. I had 2 hours left on my logbook before I needed to take my mandatory 10-hour break. The plan was to push through to the Petro in North Platte, another 68 miles ahead. The highway was mostly empty, just a few scattered cars and the occasional truck. Standard graveyard shift traffic. Then at mile marker 177, I noticed headlights behind me. Another truck, keeping pace. I was doing 67 miles per hour and he was matching my speed exactly, staying about 300 feet back. I didn't think much of it. Trucks convoy up all the time for wind resistance and company. But then a second truck appeared behind the first one. Same distance, same speed. Then a third. Within 10 minutes, there were 7 trucks behind me, all in perfect formation, all maintaining exact spacing, all moving at exactly 67 miles per hour. I checked my mirrors. I could see their headlights, all in a neat line, like synchronized swimmers. My CB crackled to life. Channel 19. A voice I didn't recognize, deep, calm, with a slight southern accent. "Evening, front runner, welcome to the convoy." I grabbed my handset. I think there's some confusion. I'm not running with a convoy." "You are now." The voice was matter of fact, not threatening, just stating a simple truth. "We've been waiting for you." "Waiting for me? I don't understand." "Check your speed, front runner. Keep it steady at 67. Don't slow down, don't speed up, don't exit the highway. Just maintain your pace." A cold feeling crawled up my spine. "Who is this?" "We're the night guard. We run this stretch of I-80 every night, 3 a.m. to 5:30 a.m., and tonight you're our front runner." I looked in my mirrors again. The 7 trucks were still there, perfect formation, perfect spacing. I couldn't make out the details in the darkness, but they looked like older models. Peterbilts and Kenworths from the 80s and 90s. "I don't want to be part of any convoy," I said. "I'm going to exit at the next off-ramp." "Don't do that, front runner." The voice had an edge now. "You need to stay with us for your own safety." "My own safety? What the hell does that mean?" No response, just static. I decided to test it. The next exit was mile marker 183, about 6 miles ahead. I'd take it, stop at whatever was there, and let these lunatics pass me by. I've dealt with weird truckers before, CB pranksters. Guys who think they're running some kind of outlaw convoy like it's the 1970s. But as I approached exit 183, something changed. The truck directly behind me accelerated. Not fast, but deliberate. He closed the distance from 300 feet to 200, then 100. My CB crackled again. "Don't exit, front runner. Stay on the highway." "Get off my ass," I shouted into the handset. "You're way too close." "Then don't exit. Maintain speed. Stay in formation." I gritted my teeth and passed the exit. The truck behind me dropped back to 300 feet immediately. Perfect spacing restored. My heart was pounding now. This wasn't a prank. This was something else. Something coordinated and deliberate. "Okay," I said into the CB. "I'm listening. What do you want?" "We don't want anything, front runner. We're protecting you." "Protecting me from what?" "From what's out there. From what hunts this highway at night." I laughed, but it came out shaky. "What hunts the highway? What are you talking about?" "You'll see soon enough. Mile marker 192, watch the westbound side. You'll understand why we're here." Mile marker 192 was about 9 miles ahead. I kept driving, adrenaline making my hands shake on the wheel. The convoy stayed in perfect formation behind me. 7 trucks. Silent except for that one voice on the CB. I reached mile marker 190, then 191. At mile marker 192, I looked across the median to the westbound lanes. There was a truck on the shoulder. A red Peterbilt parked at an angle, driver's door hanging, open. Hazard lights still flashing, and around it maybe 8 or 9 figures were moving. They weren't walking normally, they were jerking, twitching, moving in strange, disjointed ways. As I passed, one of them turned to look at my truck. Even from across the median, even in the darkness, I could see that something was wrong with its face. Too long, too white, not quite human. My blood turned to ice. The CB voice came back. "That driver stopped 3 hours ago, engine trouble. He called for roadside assistance." They're still 40 minutes away. He won't last that long. What are those things? I whispered. Nobody knows for sure. We call them the walkers. They appear on this stretch of highway between 3 and 5:30 a.m. They're drawn to stopped vehicles, to drivers who are alone and vulnerable. If you stop, they come. If you're moving, they can't touch you. That's insane. You just saw them with your own eyes, front runner. You tell me what's insane. I looked in my mirrors. The convoy was still there, still holding formation. So what are you? Some kind of vigilante truckers? We're drivers who learned the truth about this highway. Some of us learned the hard way. We lost friends, family. Other drivers who stopped on this stretch and were never seen again. So now we run this route every night. We watch for solo drivers. We create convoys. We keep people moving until they're clear of the danger zone. How long is the danger zone? Mile marker 165 to mile marker 285, 120 miles. We'll stay with you until you're through. I did the math. At 67 miles per hour, that was almost 2 hours. 2 hours of driving in formation with 7 mysterious trucks. What if I refuse? What if I speed up or slow down? Then you're on your own. And if you have to stop for any reason, flat tire, mechanical failure, anything, you'll find out what happens when the walkers reach you. Your choice, front runner. It wasn't really a choice. I'd seen those things around that red Peterbilt. Whatever they were, I wanted no part of them. Okay, I said. I'll stay with you, but I want answers. What are these things? Where did they come from? That's a longer conversation. For now, just drive. Maintain speed, watch your fuel, don't stop. The next 90 minutes were the strangest of my life. I drove through the Nebraska darkness with 7 trucks behind me in perfect formation. The CB stayed mostly quiet. Occasionally, the voice would give an instruction. Speed up to 69 for the next 10 miles, headwind. Or slow to 65, construction zone ahead. Every instruction was correct. The convoy moved like a single organism. And every time I passed a mile marker, I checked the westbound side. 3 more times I saw stopped vehicles, 2 trucks and a car. And around each one, those things, the walkers, moving in their strange, disjointed way. At mile marker 270, the CB crackled. Almost clear, front runner, 15 more miles. Then what? Then you're on your own. We'll drop back. You can continue your run or stop for rest. Your choice. Will I see you again? Only if you're on this highway between 3 and 5:30 a.m. But now you know the rules. Don't stop. Keep moving. And if you see a solo driver who looks vulnerable, you stay with them, you protect them, you pass on what you've learned. At mile marker 285, just as the voice had promised, the trucks behind me began dropping back. One by one, they reduced speed and fell behind. Within 5 minutes, they were gone. My mirrors showed empty highway. I grabbed the CB handset. Thank you. I don't know who you are, but thank you. Static for a moment. Then, we're just drivers, front runner, just like you. We watch the road. We protect our own. Safe travels. And that was it. Silence. I drove for another hour, my mind racing, before I finally pulled into a rest area near Lincoln. I was shaking so badly I could barely park the truck. I sat there for 20 minutes trying to process what had happened. Finally, I walked into the rest area building. There were 3 other drivers inside getting coffee using the restrooms. I approached one of them, an older guy with a gray beard wearing a Schneider cap. Hey, you ever heard of something called the Night Guard? Truckers who run I-80 through Nebraska in the middle of the night. His face went serious immediately. You met them? Yeah, just now. They convoyed with me for 90 miles. He nodded slowly. You're lucky. That means you were in danger. They only appear when the walkers are active. You know about the walkers? Every driver who runs I-80 regularly knows not everyone believes it, but those of us who've seen them, we know the truth. Don't stop on that stretch between 3 and 5:30 a.m. Don't ever stop. What are they? He shrugged. Nobody knows. Some people think they're spirits of drivers who died on that highway. Others think they're something older, something that was here before the highway, that got trapped by all the concrete and asphalt. All I know is they're real and they're dangerous. How many drivers have been lost? Hard to say. Over the years, maybe 100. They're listed as missing persons. Trucks found abandoned, drivers never seen again. The authorities think it's just people running away from their lives, starting over somewhere new. But we know different. I finished my coffee and walked back to my truck. On my windshield, tucked under the wiper blade, was a business card. Plain white card with black text. The Night Guard. We watch the road. Channel 19. I kept that card. I've driven I-80 through Nebraska 7 times since that night. Twice during the day, 5 times at night. Every time I run that stretch between 3 and 5:30 a.m., I keep my speed steady. I watch my mirrors and I listen to Channel 19. I haven't seen the Night Guard again, but I've seen the walkers. 3 more times, always around stopped vehicles, always moving in that horrible jerking way. And once, just once, I came across a solo driver who looked nervous, who was struggling with a load, who looked vulnerable. I fell in behind him, kept my distance at exactly 300 feet, matched his speed. And when he got nervous and called out on the CB, I told him the truth. "You're okay, driver. I'm here. Just keep moving. Don't stop. I've got your back." Because that's what we do. Those of us who know. We watch the road. We protect each other. We pass on the knowledge. The Night Guard isn't an organization. It's not a club. It's just drivers who've seen the truth and decided to do something about it. And now I'm one of them. Now I watch the road, too. Story 6. The Fuel Stop with No Exit. My name is Carlos Mendez. I'm 39 years old, and I've been an owner-operator for 12 years, running my own 2017 Volvo VNL 780 under lease to Landstar. I haul specialized freight, mostly electronics and high-value cargo, which means I'm selective about my routes and my stops. I plan everything carefully. Fuel, food, rest breaks, all calculated to optimize my time and minimize risk. That's why what happened on Highway 77 in Oklahoma last October has destroyed my confidence in my own judgment. Because I stopped at a fuel station that, according to GPS records and state databases, does not exist. It was October 13th, just after midnight. I was running from Dallas to Wichita with a load of computer servers, about 37,000 pounds. I'd fueled up in Oklahoma City and calculated I had enough diesel to reach my next planned stop in Tonkawa, another 62 miles north. But at the town of Guthrie, I noticed my fuel gauge dropping faster than it should have been. I'd been getting about 7.2 miles per gallon on this run, which is good for the weight I was carrying. But suddenly, my gauge showed I'd burned through fuel at nearly double that rate. I did the math quickly. At my current rate, I'd run out before reaching Tonkawa. I needed to refuel sooner. I grabbed my phone and opened my truck stop app. The nearest fuel was a Love's in Perry, about 18 miles ahead, off exit 185. Perfect. I'd stop there, fuel up, grab a coffee, and be back on the road in 15 minutes. But as I approached Perry, I saw a sign I hadn't noticed on the app. Ed's Fuel and Food, exit 184, 24 hours, diesel $2.89. $2.89 a gallon. That was 40 cents cheaper than the Love's, and closer. I'm a owner-operator. Every cent matters. I took exit 184. The off-ramp curved to the right, away from the highway, into darkness. The road was paved but narrow, no streetlights, just my headlights cutting through the Oklahoma night. After about a quarter mile, I saw lights ahead. A fuel station, older style, not a chain, just an independent operation. Single building with a small store, 6 diesel pumps under a canopy with fluorescent lights. There were 2 other trucks already fueling, a swift truck on one side, a night transportation truck on the other. Both were occupied, drivers inside their cabs. Normal. Everything looked normal. I pulled up to an empty pump, shut down my engine, and stepped out. The air was warm for October, maybe 75 degrees, with a slight breeze carrying the smell of diesel and fried food. The store had lights on, and I could see someone behind the counter through the windows. I swiped my fuel card at the pump. The card reader was old, one of those ancient credit card readers from the 90s, but it worked. Approved flashed on the screen. I selected diesel, started pumping. While the tank filled, I walked around my truck doing a quick inspection. Tires looked good, no leaks, everything normal. I glanced at the other 2 trucks. The Swift driver was asleep in his cab, seat reclined, curtains drawn. The night driver was looking at his phone. The pump clicked off. 112 gallons. I replaced the nozzle and headed into the store to get my receipt and grab some coffee. The store was clean but outdated. Linoleum floors, old shelving, products that looked like they'd been there for years. Behind the counter was a man in his 60s, thin, wearing a faded flannel shirt and a cap that said Ed's Fuel on it. "Help you?" he asked. His voice was rough, like he'd been smoking for 40 years. "Just need my receipt, pump 4. He punched something into an ancient cash register. The drawer opened with a ding and he pulled out a receipt, handwritten. Not printed. Handwritten with the date, gallons, and price. That should have been my first warning. But I was tired, focused on getting back on the road, and I just took the receipt and headed for the coffee station. The coffee was in one of those old glass pots on a burner, the kind you don't see anymore. I poured a cup, added cream and sugar, and paid with cash. $3 even. Ed didn't say anything, just took my money and nodded. I walked back to my truck, climbed in, and started the engine. The other 2 trucks were still there, still motionless. I pulled forward, heading for the exit road back to the highway. Except there was no exit road. I stopped, looked around. The fuel station was behind me. The road I'd come in on was there, leading back into darkness. But I couldn't see the highway. No lights, no sound of traffic, just darkness. I checked my GPS. It showed me on Highway 77 moving north. But I wasn't on the highway. I was still at the fuel station. I put the truck in reverse and backed up, then turned around, looking for the road out. The entrance road was there, but when I drove toward it, it seemed to curve away, always staying just out of reach. My heart started pounding. I grabbed my phone and tried to call Landstar Dispatch. No signal. I tried my wife. No signal. I checked my phone. It showed full bars, but every call I attempted immediately failed. I got out of the truck and walked toward the store. Ed was still behind the counter, watching me through the window. I went inside. "Hey, I can't find the exit. How do I get back to Highway 77? Ed looked at me with watery blue eyes. "You just go back the way you came." I tried. "The road doesn't go anywhere." "Sure it does. Just follow it back." "There's no highway, just darkness." He smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was sad, pitying. "You'll figure it out eventually, they all do." "What does that mean? What's going on here?" He pointed at the other 2 trucks. "Ask them. They've been here longer than you." I walked back outside and approached the Swift truck. I knocked on the driver's door. No response. I knocked harder. Nothing. I climbed up on the step and looked through the window. The driver was still there, still reclined, curtains partially open. But something was wrong. He wasn't moving. Not at all. Not breathing. I yanked the door open. The smell hit me immediately. Death. Decay. The driver had been dead for days, maybe weeks. His skin was gray, sunken. His eyes were open but clouded. I stumbled backward and fell off the step, landing hard on the concrete. My breath came in gasps. I looked at the night truck. Didn't want to check, but knew I had to. The night driver was the same. Dead. Had been for a long time. I ran back into the store. Ed was still behind the counter, watching me calmly. "They're dead," I shouted. "Both drivers are dead." "I know. How long have they been here?" "Hard to say. Time works different here. Could be days, could be months." "What is this place?" "It's a fuel stop. You stopped. You fueled. And now you're here." "I want to leave." "Can't leave till you pay the real price." "I already paid. I used my fuel card." He shook his head. "That's not the price I mean. The fuel here, it costs more than money. It costs time. Every gallon you pumped, that's one day you stay here. You pumped 112 gallons. My legs went weak. 112 days. Give or take, time's funny here. Might be less, might be more. This is insane. You can't keep me here." "I'm not keeping you. The road is. You made the choice to stop. Now you pay the price." I ran out of the store, jumped in my truck, and started the engine. I didn't care where the road went. I just drove. I followed the entrance road into the darkness, driving fast, desperate. And I ended up back at the fuel station. Same pumps. Same store. Same 2 dead drivers. I tried again. Same result. I tried a 3rd time. A 4th time. Every attempt ended with me back at the fuel station. Finally, exhausted and terrified, I parked my truck and sat in the cab. I tried my phone again. No signal. I tried my CB radio. Static. I checked my fuel gauge. Still full. I checked my dash clock. Still showed the same time. 12:43 a.m. I don't know how long I sat there. Hours, maybe days. Time didn't move. The sun never rose. The darkness never changed. But gradually I noticed something. Every time I attempted to leave and ended up back at the fuel station, the entrance road looked slightly different. A little shorter. A little brighter. So I kept trying. Over and over. Drive into the darkness, end up back at the station, but each time the road changed. Got lighter, got shorter. And then, after what felt like 100 attempts, I saw something different. Highway lights, traffic sounds. The entrance to Highway 77. I floored it. My truck roared down that road, and suddenly I was on the highway, heading north like nothing had happened. I looked at my dash clock. 12:58 a.m. 15 minutes had passed. I drove straight to the Loves in Perry and pulled in, my whole body shaking. I went inside and asked the cashier about Ed's fuel on exit 184. "Exit 184?" she said. "There is no exit 184 on Highway 77 around here. Exits go from 180 to 185. There's nothing in between." I showed her my receipt, the handwritten receipt from Ed's. She looked at it and her face went pale. "Where did you get this?" "From the fuel station. Ed's Fuel, just south of here." "Sir, Ed's Fuel closed in 1987. It burned down. The owner, Ed Hargrove, died in the fire. This receipt is dated October 13th, 1986. I looked at the receipt. She was right. The date was October 13th, 1986, not 2024. 1986. I still have that receipt. I've shown it to other drivers, to truck stop managers, to anyone who'll listen. Half think I'm crazy, half believe me but don't want to talk about it. But here's what I know. I checked my fuel records with Landstar. There's no transaction for that stop, no charge. My fuel card was never processed. According to every official record, I never stopped at Ed's Fuel. But my tank was full. 112 gallons of diesel that I didn't pay for. Diesel that cost me something else. Because ever since that night, time hasn't felt right. I'll look at my watch and hours have passed when it felt like minutes. Or I'll drive for what feels like hours and only 10 minutes have gone by. And sometimes, late at night when I'm driving through Oklahoma, I see the sign again. Ed's Fuel and Food, exit 184, 24 hours, diesel 289. But now I know better. Now I drive past, no matter how low my fuel gets, no matter how good the price looks. Because I learned the truth about Ed's Fuel. The price is never just money. And some debts take more than currency to pay. They take time. And time once spent there is never returned the same way.